Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovies inside Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties and thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. Don't be like UNC. Don't be in the bad place when it comes to your print management and document management. That stuff can catch up to you real quick without you knowing. And you're probably doing your taxes from 2024. You're like, well, how can I save money? Where can I invest? Copiers Plus. That's where you invest. Copiers-plus.com. Yeah, I said it. Carolina's in the bad place, Joe. And there's a couple indicators that prove to you that Carolina is in the bad place. Where would you like to start with their loss at Clemson? Which, before we get into Carolina, let me just say at the front, really impressive job by the Tigers.
Oh, I have a list.
Really impressive job by the Tigers to not just knock off Duke on Saturday at home in a big one, but not suffer the hangover the following game.
I'm going to give you this list, even though there's an obvious question that I cannot answer.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Let's go.
Here are the teams who have beaten Duke and Carolina in consecutive regular season games.
Okay.
Clemson, 2025, Brad Brownell. Clemson, 2020, Brad Brownell. Maryland, 2007.
Wow. Okay.
Gary Death Rules Williams.
Yeah. That's it? That's the list?
Put some respect on Brad Brownell's name.
I have an interesting would you rather question in Hey Joe that came to me when I was going through some of the OG sports phone. Again, that'll be in Hey Joe. To Carolina, though, it's one thing to lose. It's one thing to lose. Hey, man, look, that's a bad matchup. Straight up, hard stop, bad matchup.
Two bigs, that's a problem.
Forget it, especially given the way that we know that Carolina's constructed. And it is what it is with the roster construction at this point. And, you know, we can get into the year-to-year proposition. And, hey, man, Hubert Davis missed in how they constructed the team this year. Blah, 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 blah. Covered, discussed. Moving on. Print it, stamp it. Let's freaking go. Okay? That being said...
You just got to yada my entire shtick.
I understand that.
Yeah.
We're not on radio anymore. We're going to vamp for an hour. So the thing is that's alarming is that while even though you know it's a bad matchup, you still got to have some friction. You still have to show some level of resistance on the way to getting beat by what is a pretty good Clemson team, for heaven's sake. And after they had a lead of 23-21, and your boy, was it Lackin? Right, locked in.
Ruski.
Right? Back-to-back games where he just buries the blue blood, okay?
Wes Miller weapon activated.
So this happens, and then they're done. Now, in previous instances so far this season for Carolina, and this is indicator number one that the Tar Heels are in the bad place. It's not like Carolina hasn't been down double digits before.
Heck, Florida.
Okay.
It was actually a better team than Clemson.
At some point, it was a running gag that, hey, man, something about this team, they need to find themselves down double digits for the activation to go. Like, all right, now it's serious. Let's have the flurry back. And something happens and they make it a game. And that's how you end up in 10 games that have been in one possession situations. Now, put a pin in the one possession thing too. So that's bad place indicator number one. They didn't have it in them. They just were done. Clemson got out to that lead, and you never really got an indication that North Carolina was going to be able to stop them in any way, shape, or form. That's bad. Okay. Bad place indicator number two. I was coming back from Garner. It was Jacob at hockey practice. So I got in the car, and I put on Jones Angel and the Tar Heel Radio Network. Now, for those who might not be aware, I am a huge fan of Jones Angel. Jones is a professional in every sense of the word. Okay. He's very good at what he does.
And talk about being the guy who has to follow the guy.
The guy. Okay.
Gosh.
He's done an excellent job. He's had his signature moments, all that.
Unreal.
So I'm a huge fan of Jones. Jones sounded like a guy who I can't even really articulate what I heard on the Tar Heel Radio Network.
It's funny because I was driving back from Garner. I was over at the rec center.
There you go.
Drove back. I was probably listening to the same stretch that you were.
Okay.
I heard a man who sounded defeated, who understood who he works for and understood it. The less he says, the better.
Yes.
And it sounded like he was reading the phone book.
Let's just get out of
he
here.
was reading the phone book.
But there was one slip up because he at some point he said something about like, we're talking forever, like 100 years of basketball. Like that's how bad this was. I was like, yo, okay. And then did you hear the Hubert Davis coach's corner with Jones Angel?
No, I did not hear the post game.
Look, again, Jones is asking the very even-keeled questions you should be asking after something like that. The amount of pauses that Hubert took while trying to find the right words were so long that in my radio brain, I'm thinking, buddy, you're gonna trigger the silence alarm, okay? Because every radio station has this software that if you don't hear audio coming through the speakers for a long period of time, it triggers an alarm, like something's wrong. So Hubert's like really struggling to put it in the right way. And essentially what he kind of landed on was, because apparently he took some time in the locker room. It was a longer conversation post-game.
To your point, they were not competitive after it was 23-21.
And that's where Hubert was going with it. And like, there's an expectation where you wear that uniform. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, well, we've spent a lot of time talking about how with college basketball today, it's different. It's more transactional. It's this and that. I'm like, oh, yeah. But I'm thinking to myself, that's not RJ Davis's problem. That's not Elliot Cadeau's problem. I mean, those guys know that's not Seth Trimble's problem. They know what the deal is. But they are in a really, really bad spot, which gets us to the final indicator of Carolina's in the bad place. And I say this as professionally as I can. And I mean this with all sincerity. Adam Lucas, who has been covering the Tar Heels for a very, very long time and writes for GoHeels.com and has written several books about the Tar Heels, understands his audience better than any other writer in the Triangle. He knows who he's writing for.
I was going to say, arguably #1 Carolina fan.
Yes. Yeah. But what I mean is that Adam has a particular way of spinning even the worst moments into something that Carolina fans can put their arm around.
Adam is partially responsible for my theory that if something good can happen to Carolina, it will.
Fair enough.
Because, that's the yarn. That's the kind of yarn that he spins is like, hey, now.
And he understands this about Carolina. Oh, yeah. He understands this about his audience. And he nails it every single time. It's not my cup of tea because then again, I didn't grow up a Carolina fan. Sure. I didn't grow up in that environment. I'm not looking for the silver lining through the despair that this team, once in their darkest moment, found redemption at the end.
The News and Observer said Lorenzo Brown was better than Kendall Marshall.
How'd that work out?
He was shown that clip before the game.
So here is Adam Lucas. This was presented to me by a Carolina person because I'm not going to GoHeels.com to read Adam Lucas after the game. It is what it is. He says, hey, man, in all the years that I've been reading Adam, he has never questioned the coaching.
Right.
This is not what he does.
Right.
That's not his deal. And I respect that. I want to be clear. I respect that. So I'm like, okay, well, let me scroll. Lakin's perimeter efforts were, this is item number 8. Lakin's perimeter efforts were integral to the half that saw the Tigers go 8 for 12 from 3. Carolina shot 50% from the field in the first half, and they still trailed by 16 at the break. The Heels tried a full court press on one possession in the first half. It led to a turnover, but that was the only appearance from that set in the first 20 minutes. Like, okay, that's not a big deal. Item number 10. The press has to be a bigger part of Carolina's plan going forward. The Tar Heels need the easy scoring opportunities it sometimes creates. It will definitely also give up some occasional easy baskets, but the Tar Heels aren't playing great defensively in the half court anyway. The one encouraging statistic in the entire game is that Carolina forced 15 Clemson turnovers. They have to find a way to do that more often. End quote. That was item number 10. That is the most polite way that he could possibly question it. But the point is, he questioned it. He's wondering, what the hell's going on here? And buddy, let me tell you, when you've lost Adam Lucas, you are in the bad place.
Yeah, I mentioned that Carolina had 3 paths yesterday to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Yes, beating Clemson would be difficult, but given the spot that they were in,
they have to.
It was the easiest it was the path of least resistance. You're now in a situation where you need to beat Duke. You need to go on a crazy Sun run in the ACC tournament, these things become less and less likely. And the truth of the matter is, a hard reset is in place, and the question will be whether Hubert Davis will be part of that hard reset or not.
I don't think he will.
You and I are both inclined to think that Carolina, given the financial commitment they just made on the football side, is not going to blow up their basketball staff in the same, calendar year.
Yeah.
But at some point, money talks and everything else walks.
Here's why I say
I'm not the one with the money.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I agree. And here's where I don't think that Hubert Davis is going to be a part of that reset, because this is where we're at with the Tar Heels. Okay. You could make an argument for a reset if they were competitive while they were missing out on the NCAA tournament. Okay.
Yeah, the game against the top two teams in the ACC, neither has been competitive.
Not competitive at all. And it's not only that have not been competitive, they have looked disinterested in the process. And it's not like it's a brand spanking new team. I mean, there's a lot of holdover guys on this team that also look like they don't want to, like, they're second guessing some decisions is what I'm getting at.
Sure.
And I can't, I mean, I know I'm not in the locker room and I'm not in these guys' heads, but based on the results, you can kind of infer there's some,
they have a 2010 problem.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen this before in Carolina.
You look at Powell and Jackson coming off the bench and not starting and not contributing, and
that leads to other questions. Why? Yeah. Why aren't they? I mean, you're not going to get these guys for very long, if at all. I mean,
right.
So anyway, if they were competitive, I could see the argument being made for Hubert Davis with the right pieces in place to get, hey man, you get another year out of this. You got your general manager. We made some staff changes. We understand college basketball is a year-to-year proposition. You hit in the portal. You do what you need to do. Let's have at it. But that's not what this is looking like right now. And I want you to do a little thought experiment. Back to the one-possession games, where they've had a historic amount of one-possession games, first time in the ACC since like the 70s or whatever it is. And they got a winning record in those 10 one-possession games. Mm-hmm. But look how, again, they're one-possession games. They were fortunate to be out of some of those games. All right. Fortunate to come out of some of those games. And if you go through the process of flipping them and calling them for what they were, then this year looks even worse than it actually is. So we got some OG Sports phone calls about this, which we'll take.
Are we firing a coach again today? Is that what we're doing?
No, I think it's
on this program.
I think it's a little Tar Heel therapy.
Oh, okay.
It's a little bit more Tar Heel therapy than it is firing coaches today, which I'm okay with that.
No,
I'm okay with that.
Therapeutic is good.
I'm okay with that. Anyway, anytime we talk about ACC hoops, it's brought to you by our friends over at Keller Williams. Check them out online at trianglencommercial.com. 919-616-8681. The Donnelly team at Keller Williams, Brian and Julie, are going to help you find a place for all of your Adam Lucas books.
Yeah, if you need a bigger bookshelf or a bigger office space, give Brian and Julie a call. 919-616-8681.
Joining us on the Heaster Automotive Group hotline from the Washington Post, he is Patrick Stevens. He is our resident bracketologist. Patrick, are we here to bury the North Carolina Tar Heels?
Not quite, but the shovels are starting to come out a little bit. It's getting close.
So what would it take for North Carolina to pull an Undertaker GIF where they just pop up and they're like, my God, the Tar Heel phenoms are back?
Well, first of all, it's worth acknowledging that there really isn't a whole lot that they can accomplish in the next 3.5 weeks that are really going to do them any good. I mean,
let me hold on.
Age old.
Let me hold on.
Age old conversation.
Let me slightly push back. They can certainly fuck themselves over the next 3 weeks.
Oh yeah, I said they didn't have anything they could do that would do themselves a lot of good.
Okay, gotcha.
So you go at Syracuse, NC State, Virginia, at Florida State, Miami, at Virginia Tech. I mean, none of those games do anything to really help you. I mean, maybe Florida State might be a quad 2 game, but really that's not really doing a whole lot for you. So that's 6 in a row that you have a lot more to lose than you do to gain. And then you've got Duke sitting there at home at the end, a game that is clearly going to have a lot riding on it for the Tar Heels if they can get through these next 6 games. And if not, it becomes a you got to go really, really far and maybe win it all once you get down to Charlotte next month.
5 ACC teams make the NCAA tournament, Patrice?
I think it might be as low as 4.
Okay.
It could be as low as 3, depending on what happens with the likes of Wake Forest and Pitt, and even sneaky as they are, your Smoos. I know you love your Smoos, and it's funny that today going up on the Washington Post, I wrote a little bit about SMU and how you look at their profile, and there's obviously one huge thing missing. They haven't got a high end win at all. Their most valuable victory is having beaten LSU on a neutral court.
Gotcha.
So and LSU's like 12-11, but they haven't done anything bad. They're in the top 50 in all but one of the team sheet metrics. They don't have a quad 3 loss. They don't have a quad 4 loss. They're 5-2 on the road. And so if they just keep stacking victories, it might be enough to squeeze them into a Dayton spot just because they piled up 20-some victories and somebody's got to go to the tournament. So why not them?
Yeah, I got 5 because I say Clemp, Lou, and then I go Wake, Pitt.
Okay.
My other sneaky one would be Stanford. As you know, I have affinity for Kyle Smith. They're kind of sort of just hanging around. I know beating Herb Sendek doesn't get you in. It is their best win, but I know it doesn't get you in. But
actually, technically, the win at North Carolina is their best win.
Okay.
But they're not in the top 60 in any of the team sheet metrics at this point. They have the loss to Cal Poly back in November. That's just a real anchor for them. I mean, certainly you look at them and you think, well, why can't they make a run to like the conference semifinals or something like that? No reason they can. I mean, they've got one of the 2 best players in the league, but there just isn't a whole lot on that profile for them. Like you said, Santa Clara and North Carolina and the win at Cal, and those are their only victories in the top 2 quads.
Okay. What does Wake have to do? Because I feel like they're in a similar position to previous teams. I know they have the Michigan technically neutral win. Mm-hmm. What do you think? When you look at Wake and you look at what they've done, because they've been playing well, but that doesn't always mean that much.
Well, the committee tends to look at those result-based metrics a little more in a more friendly way than the predictive metrics.
Okay.
And that's good for Wake because in the 3 result-based metrics on the team sheets, they're in the top 40 in all 3. And in the predictive metrics, the best of the 3 that they're at is 59th, which is also their net ranking. So they do have that Michigan win. They don't have much else. They haven't done anything bad at all. Arguably, the worst thing they've done all year is lose to Xavier, and that's another borderline tournament team. No losses outside of quad 1. They're 5-4 on the road, 2-1 neutral. Like there's enough there that if they simply kind of do what they're supposed to do, and you look at their remaining schedule, like I think that game at SMU on Saturday is really big for both teams. If Wake can go in there and win that game and also kind of handle the business that they should handle, like Florida State at home, Virginia at home, Notre Dame at home, Georgia Tech at home, sort of scary thought going to NC State, that might be a spot where NC State gets a little feisty, but they could put themselves in a spot where they just create enough separation just by stacking victories, just by being at 23 wins or something like that. And all those other teams at the edge of the field are probably going to be losing a fair bit. I mean, they're there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going 6-1 down the stretch, you're probably going to be able to create a little bit of separation. At the same time, let's face it, the big thing for Wake is the same as the big thing for Carolina. They've got that game against Duke in early March, and that's an opportunity for them. It's not an easy opportunity, obviously, going to Cameron, but it is an opportunity for them.
I was going to say, I hate it for Forbes that they only got Clemp once and Louisville once, both on the road.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a lot on this program about the path of least resistance. A lot of these teams don't take the path of least resistance. Mm-hmm. As someone who covered and followed NC State forever, you never want to be in the situation of, well, if we beat Gary Williams on the road on a Tuesday and then turn around and just beat Duke,
piece of cake.
Oh, it can still happen.
North Carolina, just bad matchup. Going to Clemson, what's the big deal? Just go out and do it. As Dabo was in the house, I'm sure Pat Narduzzi was to go beat Clemson.
Patrice, I found 3 examples of teams who've beaten Duke and Carolina in consecutive regular season games since 2004. You ready?
Okay.
Brad Brownell 2025, Brad Brownell 2020, Gary Death Rules Williams 2007. The only other one to do it.
Yellow pad needs some sweat. All right, Patrick, before we get out of here, give me a bobblehead. What do we got today?
Give me a bobblehead, a ACC legend of sorts, as both a coach and a player. Actually just entered the American University Hall of Fame, Jeff Jones.
Yes.
How about that?
Where the hell do you get
I was going to say, now, where did you get this?
Where did you get a Jeff Jones bobblehead?
From American from maybe 10, 15 years ago before he went to ODU.
Oh.
Where was the Pete Gillen one from?
It was actually from Xavier.
Amazing, Patrick. As always, amazing. All right, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Awesome. Take care.
Housekeeping.
It's brought to you by Innovana. Check them out online at innovana.com. Green Cleaning Solutions. Joe, I got an email just now letting me know they're going to be at my house next Tuesday.
If you have mess inside your mansion or trash in your cabana, get it clean with Innovana.
Got OGTriangleMedia.com. What is OGTriangleMedia.com about? It's about OG fans.
That life.
It's about that life. Be about that OJ fans' life. $13 a month. You can also save by buying for the year. What do you get with OG fans? Well, you get a newsletter. Joe Giglio writes. You get podcasts. I do those. Mailbags, OG business, panic rooms, all sorts of fun stuff. And gives you access to fun, cool events like what we're doing at Longleaf on the 19th. Because if you're going to have to watch NC State Carolina play basketball, if you're going to have to count down the near full calendar year it's been since NC State's won a road game. I'm not kidding with that stat, by the way.
I know.
You, as an OG fan subscriber, get access to the Longleaf Extravaganza that Wednesday night. Come hang out with us.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, so come hang out with us, and then, of course, you and I are going to be doing...
In the house...
right, new house bourbon, right? And we will be doing an after dark from Longleaf Swine that night. So go to OGTriangleMedia.com and sign up today. Some other things you can do to help out OG Triangle Media: subscribe to the podcast, obviously. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. That obviously helps. But watching, key. But beyond watching, hit the likes, leave comments, rate us on your favorite podcast apps, leave comments on Spotify. All those types of things help with discoverability, which is crucial to the growth of this podcast. So we appreciate everybody who has already done those things. Salute to you. But we need those who have jumped on or have been listening for a while to do the same. So please subscribe, rate. 5 stars only. Positive vibes only. Speaking of vibes, we are into 2025. You are looking to make better choices. Sometimes it is difficult. Let's be real. As somebody who's got that dad bod, it is difficult to take that leap. You're working out, you're eating right, but just something's just not right. Could be testosterone, right? Could be low testosterone. And this is where our friends at O2 Fitness Clubs have partnered with Thrive to get you over to that next step. So first and foremost, go to O2fitnessclubs.com.
O2 Fitness, so much more than a gym.
Great locations, great staff, great equipment. Renew Physiotherapy. You're getting some work on this week, right? Loop Nutrition helps you with what to eat and things like that, putting a plan together. But if you got to take that next step and tackle things like low testosterone, which happens for dudes that hit their 40s, like me and Giglio, you're not feeling that kind of energy.
I wish I was still on my 40s.
Right. Yes, right. You're approaching that.
Wish.
You can go to Thrive. Holistic wellness support, clear guidance from board certified doctors, no insurance required, free and discreet shipping from US-based pharmacies, easy online process, and they're a trusted partner of O2 Fitness. We're talking weight loss and local. We're talking weight loss, testosterone treatments, oral testosterone treatments. Again, this is where we're at in 2025. You can go online, you can talk to somebody, get answers, and then get prescribed what you need going forward with, again, that discreet shipping. So I can tell you, it's probably better than thems. Is that working?
You're getting there.
Am I getting there on that one?
Hey, you delivered that line better yesterday, but it's
all right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
You
fair
got
enough.
more energy than yesterday.
Fair enough.
So
Speaking of delivering the goods, our friends at Roback deliver the goods all the time. Check them out online, roback.com. Use that promo code OG20 to save 20% off your order. Speaking of going to the gym, great collection of gym shorts, great colorways, super comfortable, things that you can actually just wear out too. You're not going to the gym that day, but no shame in wearing these bad boys out. Good stuff. And of course, t-shirts, hoodies, things like that get you going.
Jackson Pollock on today.
I know that's the one that always messes with the white balance, but it's what it is. It is what it is. And of course, our friends over at Breeze Through. Check them out. breezethrough.com.
Coffee.
Yeah.
Is it time yet to read the Google review from Two Roosters?
Not yet.
Okay.
That will actually be in the next, as I built out the ad break.
Build it out.
That'll be in the next ad break.
Okay.
We will read that. A
tease.
tease for you.
What a win that was.
By all means, when we talk about subscribing and rating and things like that, go and leave reviews for our corporate champions.
With our corporate champions.
Leave the reviews with the corporate champions. So I bet you never thought to leave a review at a gas station. You know what? Do it.
That's what I'm saying.
Go to
Breeze
Through.
at Breeze Through is that good.
While you're pumping gas, just go, you know what? I'm going to go on the Google Maps. I'm going to leave a 5-star review for Breeze Through.
Yeah,
damn right you will.
And the OG sent you.
Of course. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline from Panthers.com, a longtime NFL observer, Panthers, I would call him a Panthers legend himself. He is Darin Gantt of Panthers.com on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. What's going on, Darin?
I will take, I can be a legend of many things, but not a Panthers legend. That's reserved for very select few people.
No, you are a Panthers legend because...
How about a Rock Hill legend?
Oh, I like that.
I will take that. Rock Hill legend, sure. Gastonia legend.
The reason why I say you're a Panthers legend is because you do have to argue on behalf of the Panthers when it comes to legend status.
Yeah.
The NFL Hall of Fame. You and I have talked about these things throughout the last 15, 20 years or so about how this process works. But one of the things that came out of the Super Bowl was a little bit of confusion as to how the NFL Hall of Fame now works. And obviously with every Hall of Fame class, regardless of how it's set up, people aren't happy with the logjam that's currently taking place. And that logjam affects everybody from guys like Luke Kuechly, who you're arguing on behalf, guys who I think will eventually get there because it's just what's going to happen, Eli Manning. And then, of course, Torrey Holt, which here locally people will bring up as what the hell's going on, what's it going to take for Torrey Holt to get in. So for those who are not quite up to speed with where things are right now, you know, why is it such a difficult thing to get an obvious choice like Luke Kuechly into the Hall of Fame, not happening now or happening within the next couple of years because of a logjam that's taking place?
Right. Well, take it up with Deion Sanders and some of the former Hall of Famers, or I guess current Hall of Famers, former players who have complained about too many people getting in. It's a weird argument to me, but there were, for a long time, for about 20 years, the Hall of Fame was putting 5 or 6 guys a year in, and everybody seemed content about that. There were 5 modern guys, usually 4 or 5 every year, then a senior every now and then, or not, as the case may be, but it was usually 5 or 6 guys a year. Then they wanted to expand it, get some contributors in, get more seniors. Former Hall President Dave Baker created a centennial class of 20 people one year to celebrate the 100th anniversary of professional football so they could get Paul Tagliabue and some other people in the Hall. And people thought there were too many, so they tightened up the rules, and they created what I believe, and I've written this at Panthers.com, to be an artificial construct. The idea that you take that normal group of 15 finalists, which we used to always vote from 15 to 10, 10 to 5. And then at 5, we were just given a series of yes-no votes. You got 80% of those, you were a Hall of Famer. It became a rubber stamp, but that's probably what it should have always been because these guys are all deserving. If you get to the final 5 out of that club, you're a Hall of Famer. But they added a layer in this year where we went 15, 10, 10 to 7. And at 7, they said pick 5. And only the people who get 80% of the vote in that vote or the top 3 get in the Hall of Fame. Now, this is the math that I know is going to make your rating soar. 49 people with 7 votes each, 245. You could split this 7 ways. Everybody could get 35 votes. That's the margin. You've got to get to 40. You could split it perfectly evenly and everybody would get 35. So that's how thin the margin is. And none of the guys in the final 7 are undeserving. You had the 3 modern guys who got in the other night, Jared Allen, Eric Allen, Antonio Gates. Nobody's arguing about any of those guys. The next 4 were Torrey Holt, Luke Kuechly, Willie Anderson, Adam Vinatieri. The problem's not that any of them deserve to be ahead of the other. It's that none of them deserve 0 votes at that point.
Okay.
So since everybody's getting some, it splits. And then you get a 3-man modern Hall of Fame class that people complain about. So the math ain't mathing, to make it a long story short this year. But it's frustrating. And I think partisans who are, in favor of Torrey Holt or Luke Kuechly or Adam Vinatieri are unsatisfied with the process. I think a lot of people are unsatisfied. I know a lot of the voters are unsatisfied because of the criticism we get that was beyond our control. I mean, because this system was designed to create a smaller class, and that's what it got us.
So how many total voters are there?
49.
49. And that's all people who have covered the league like yourself, or is it?
A lot of people like me. There are 4 former players and, Hall of Famers. Tony Dungy's in the room. Bill Polian's in the room. James Lofton, Dan Fouts. But it's mostly former writers, media types.
And you all get in a room together?
Well, in a Zoom room in the last couple of years.
Okay.
Since the pandemic, it's been a Zoom room.
And to remind people, since you covered Luke Kuechly, since you covered Cam Newton, Steve Smith, Julius Peppers the previous year, it is your responsibility to present to the voters the case for the player.
I make the initial case. I'll, outline the career. Here are the accomplishments. Here's what you should consider in the voting. I don't think it's an advocacy thing, although some people turn it into that. But I mean, I don't think of it as advocacy as much as information. Here's why you should consider Luke Kuechly for. Here's why you should consider whoever for. And, it's geographical, and guys are asked to talk about the people they know the best because they're the one, ultimately those boots on the ground types like I have been for a long time, are the ones who know Luke Kuechly the best. And I mean, to me, Luke's an easy sell. And I can just tell you, part of the presentation I made was Luke did everything a football player could do for the time he played. 8 years, was named All-Pro 7 times. You want to do math? 87.5% of the years Luke Kuechly played football, he was named All-Pro. Do you know how many people did that at a higher percentage than Luke Kuechly?
I was going to say some offensive lineman. Munoz, maybe.
Oh, 2. Barry Sanders, Jim Brown.
Oh,
okay.
That's the club. There is a club of which the members are Barry Sanders, Jim Brown, and Luke Kuechly.
All right.
I think the next guy down behind Luke Kuechly on that list is Reggie White.
So what you're saying is Luke Kuechly should be a Hall of Famer? Is that
That's
what you're saying?
in my humble opinion.
Your humble opinion? Okay.
In my humble opinion, yes.
But I guess that's what, as a fan, and then you as part of this process, that has to be the most frustrating aspect of this. It's like, what are we doing here? Are you a Hall of Famer or are you not? I mean, this is when I tap into my old radio bag of tricks. Okay, you got nothing to talk about today? All right, here we go with the take. Are you or are you not? It ain't that complicated. And there's nothing about Sterling. No offense to Sterling Sharp. Hell, no offense to Torrey Holt.
Right.
But it's like, man, we've been having this debate for X amount of years. There is no new data that is being produced. None. Yeah. And you can't sit here and tell me, well, if you apply modern day football to blah, 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 his stat. I don't give a shit. You absolutely judge it based on the era that you come from. Yeah. And you either are or you not. And Luke Kuechly, as you just laid out, like, I mean, and a lot of dudes built like Luke Kuechly, and even I, somebody who's not a deep football knower, can look at Luke Kuechly and go, yeah, dude, this is freaking Hall of Famer. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, and again, this was a reaction. And as with, anybody that's been in driver's ed knows, if you get off on this side of the road and you overcorrect, you end up in the ditch over here.
Yeah.
And I think respectfully to the Hall's process, I mean, their board of directors is the one that made this decision, and guys in the Hall of Fame, I've joked that it's a little bit like immigration. Once you're on the other side of the wall, you think they should close the door. None of those other people deserve to get in. Only me. Only I worked hard enough to deserve this. And I'm being
did you tap into some of my old Noche Buenas down in Miami, Darin?
I mean, and
that sounds like an old uncle of mine.
And I'm being a little flip about it, but slamming the door in Luke Kuechly's face does not make Deion Sanders' bust any shinier.
Right.
So I don't, and I mean, I don't get that part. I mean, why are you trying to, pushing somebody down doesn't raise you up? And it's weird to me. It's frustrating because now we're going into a process next year. I mean, listen, you want to talk about Torrey Holt, your guy's 2 years out now. Because if we're getting a 3-man class, guess what? Next year, Drew Brees is a first-time finalist. Larry Fitzgerald's a first-time finalist. And Larry Fitzgerald is second in all the things we count behind Jerry Rice.
Yeah, so he's getting in.
So he's getting in. He's like Julius jumped the line over the Jared Allens of the world because his stats were this much more. Fitz is going to do that to Torrey and all the receivers next year. So we're going to be 2 years out before we talk about Torrey again in a serious manner. And until Torrey gets in, then we'll figure out what we're going to do with Reg Wayne, Steve Smith.
I'm going to ask you the question that all coaches, when I ask them, absolutely abhor. And I think you can appreciate this as someone who has asked coaches questions that they abhor. Are you ready?
Yeah, hit me.
What part of this, if you're being honest with me, I get it. You're not an advocate, but Peppers is kind of assigned to you, right?
Sure.
So let's just, for the sake of being super general here, you got your guy in last year.
No. 20-second timeout.
Okay.
Julius Peppers got Julius Peppers in the Hall.
I understand that.
I was the guy carrying the mail.
When we vote and we're in a room, right? Yeah. There's politics involved here. Or how much politics are involved here? Because I can sit here and say to you, hey, man, I got your guy in last year. You got to get my guy in this year.
There have been allegations of that. I believe, and again, I've been a part of this process for 15, 16 years now. I have heard the stories of what the smoke-filled room was like when it was still a smoke-filled room.
Right. An excellent room.
Yeah, I miss smoke. But I don't think that's as much a part of it now as people might believe. I mean, is there discussion? I mean, ultimately, the people on this committee are longtime friends. We talk when we see each other on the road, that kind of stuff. So there's some degree of talk, but I don't think it's a quid pro quo thing nearly as much as people think. I mean, if there were, I think you would see big swings in the voting for certain guys, including one particular guy who didn't get in this year, who generated a lot of conversation. But I don't know. I don't see as much of that, frankly. Maybe they're just not calling me.
Okay. All right. So the other thing, this was not the intention. Well, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is now that Super Bowl 59 is over, we set our sights on Super Bowl 60, which is back in the Bay Area, which the last time, 10 years ago.
This is a special math edition. I feel like Schoolhouse Rock today.
Yeah.
3 is a magic number. There's 3 of us here on screen.
This is true. True. So 10 years ago.
Minus 10. Where does that take us?
Take us? Oh, we are set on a path of 10-year retrospectives of the 2015 Carolina Panthers season. A very special year in Carolina Panthers football.
Jared Allen talked about that the other night. You can read all about it on Panthers.com.
Darin, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to hit you with the dab. We're bringing it back, baby. It's like it never went away. Actually, in my world, the dab never went away. I still think that's a great move to pull off. But, that conversation is going to have to be tabled. We have all off season to get ourselves set up. I may or may not have been down the eBay rabbit holes to see if I can find merch that wasn't in my size at Super Bowl 50.
Didn't you just find a Super Bowl 50 shirt yesterday?
No, that's the one that I bought in San Francisco from Radio Row. But there's other ones that were not in my size that I'm still mad that I was not able to purchase. Darin, I know you still got one of those slick white Nike jackets with the big gold 50 on it somewhere. I know you got one.
You know, here's the thing, and you're close to appreciating this. My kids raid the merch closet. My daughter calls it shopping. So I come home with stuff, and then did I have some of that? Maybe, sure.
Oh, stop it. I know you had that kind of stuff. But, you know, the 10-year retrospectives on Super Bowl 50, they can wait a little bit because Cam and Steve Smith seem to be beefing online. Now, look, the context of this is really, really simple. Cam Newton went on a podcast with Travis Hunter. They were talking about, you know, top pick status and all this other kind of stuff. Cam, who's in the media game, needs to learn, and I've said this before, Cam in the media game needs to know that words do matter. And you cannot call a bunch of your old teammates losers, even though I might understand what your point is. You can't call the 52 other guys losers. Steve Smith did not like this. He has gone online, and he has made it known he did not like this. And when this was unfolding, you know what my first thought was, Darin? Was going back to Super Bowl 50, actually, on Radio Row, where Steve Smith was making the rounds. And I think this is important context, is why I think you're perfect to talk about this context and why you're seeing some of this stuff bubble up. Back in Super Bowl 50, to get guests for the radio market size that we were at that time and continue to be is very difficult. Okay. So I managed to convince Steve Smith's handler that we could do a walk and talk. Now, a walk and talk is basically Steve is moving from one table to another table. You have about 2 minutes to talk to this person. So I held the phone while Adam Gold talked to Steve Smith. And Adam asked him 2 real easy softball questions that Steve had no problems answering. Then he asked him about Cam. Steve did not answer, and he walked away. That's where they were at that point in time.
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's been some mending of fences theoretically, but clearly there are still some hard feelings about that transitionary period, Darin, that I know you covered.
Yeah.
From the Steve Smith era Panthers to what had to become the Cam Newton era Panthers.
Sure.
So let's take a little trip down memory lane to let people know who might not be familiar, that might not remember the Steve Smith years, about why that was the way that it was.
We should start by saying he's a complicated man and no one understands him but his woman. No, that's John Schaap. No, wait, that's Steve. And also Cam.
And Cam, they're the same dude.
Both of them. And part of the reason it had to, I've always said, Cam Newton is a lead singer, okay? He's Jim Morrison. He is the guy who tells the weird poetry. Nobody really understands it, but he's good for business for the band, so everybody puts up with it. I mean, nobody's coming to see Ray Manzarek. Everybody's coming to see Jim Morrison.
Right.
Cam is that way, and also Steve is that way. And so there was always going to be tension. Steve was old Panthers. Steve was, you know, the guy who made the play. He did the thing in St. Louis. And there was always going to be that tension because there was a new lead singer coming along. And, Dave Gettleman made the decision, and it was probably the right decision at the time, to make it Cam. Steve had to go. And obviously, Steve didn't like it. You had the blood and guts and put your goggles on game with Baltimore. He comes and torches them, 2 touchdowns, does the Steve thing. I was talking to someone who's really close to Steve after running into Steve on the street the other day. And I thought the most perfectly Steve thing was that he came across the street to greet me while the "Don't Walk" sign was on, which was just Steve in a nutshell. I will not wait for the white man on the sign to tell me I can go. At any rate, Steve, that was the measured Steve response. That was the calm, zen Steve saying, I don't appreciate that. We don't believe we were losers. Mm-hmm. It was probably inevitable when something like that came up. But I just think that more than anything, as Cam gets used to being a media personality and always being on, we're going to realize again that Cam is not always the most eloquent ambassador for his own position.
Yeah.
He often says and does things that makes Cam Newton's life harder.
Mm-hmm.
He did it. He did it when he was playing, the whole Jordan Rodriguez. Oh, that's funny that you would ask me that question. And it was in his mind an innocuous thing to say, but it became a thing for so long. And he'll do that, and he's going to do that. So I just think, waiting for Cam to eloquently and with nuance express the way he thinks about certain things is probably, unrealistic. But at the same time, Cam has definitely kicked a hornet's nest here, and a lot of guys who he used to work with, a lot of guys who covered for him, honestly, during a lot of those years and said, well, what Cam really meant was they're getting kind of tired of covering. I mean, they are, because the MVP was one thing, and I don't disagree. I mean, if you gave 19, or if you would have given 2003 Darin Gantt a chance to win a Pulitzer by himself or to share an award with the entire Rock Hill Herald, guess what? But I don't know. That's a long way of saying Cam and Steve have a complicated relationship, and they probably always will.
Yeah, they're always going to have it. And it's just going to add an interesting wrinkle to how we approach the 10-year anniversary of Super Bowl 50, which
We're here.
We're here. The next time we talk to you, it will be about the differences between that Super Bowl and the Jake Delhomme Super Bowl, and why one still resonates while the other has just kind of been lost to the dustbin of history. Because Super Bowl 50 still resonates, I think. And not just because it was 10 years ago. I think there was something special about that year that still resonates today. And I think a lot of people are, we'll see if Bama Bryce makes it a thing.
Is that attached to how old you are, though? Because I think some of that is generational.
No.
Because the 2003 Super Bowl, for a lot of Panthers fans, was like that first moment when they had arrived on a national stage and finally belonged. And
2003 to me, and it's podcast, so obviously time doesn't matter. But since you brought it up, 2003 is the equivalent of 2002 Carolina Hurricanes Stanley Cup. In the sense that, where the hell did this come from?
Yeah.
Right? Like, whoa. Like, hey, good team, but damn, where the hell did this come from? All right.
Also, right down to playing a superpower and maybe probably should have beating that superpower.
Yes.
For the title.
In the case of the Panthers, it's obviously the Patriots. And in the case of the Carolina Hurricanes, it was a Detroit Red Wings team that was at the peak of its powers back in 2002, right? The reason why I think 15, 16 resonates a little bit more is because they should have won that damn game. They were great all freaking year.
Yeah.
They left
doubted all year.
Even, they were the best team in the NFL.
Worst 7-0 team in NFL history.
Yeah. And then left no doubt in the playoffs on their way to the Super Bowl. Okay. And the tone was set so early that I think some people were like, if certain things happen here and there, where I will liken it to 2002 in the Stanley Cup for the Carolina Hurricanes, if the Canes win the overtime game at the arena, I'm convinced they go on to win.
Sure.
With the Panthers in that Super Bowl, if certain thing, a catch here, or maybe maybe a guy's not getting literally pushed across the turf, like little things here and there you go, they still could have won that game. And I think that's why it resonates a little bit differently, because that was a tape to tape, just all vibe season, which I think that's what makes it a little bit different. But
Cotchery caught it, by the way.
I know. Don't get Brownlow started on that. I think
that could be a podcast series unto itself. Don't get Brownlow started on it.
Yes. All right, man. Appreciate the time as always. I'm sure this will come up again. I'm sure you're not having any meetings about this going into this off season. Not at all.
There no special plans are being made.
None. None. All right, dude. We'll talk to you later.
See y'all.
And now, Joe, we present to you the Two Roosters review. I've got it up on YouTube if you're watching right now. But by all means, Joe, read the review.
Wow. We went for National Ice Cream for Breakfast Day. That was the first time we went. I've been hearing so much about Two Roosters from the OG podcast. Don't ever question the OG taste buds. They no greatness. Our family truly enjoyed Two Roosters. Neither me, my wife, nor my two daughters can decide which flavor from our ice cream flight that we enjoyed the most. We are already discussing a trip in the near future to decide. Thanks, Bluegrass Matt. We're currently working on a deal with some t-shirt people. Don't ever question the OG taste buds moving rapidly up that list. Yes,
that goes up.
We know greatness.
This is true.
And so does Jared at Two Roosters. Rice Krispie this month is the one. It's my
That's
new
the
love.
one? All right.
Yeah, it's my
All right.
Valentine.
Life is about balance. So yes, you go to Two Roosters. You enjoy those cereal for cereal for ice cream for breakfast flavors, right? But then you're like, man, I really went hard in the paint. How do you balance that out? You go to Happy and Hail. You download the app. You use that promo code OG25 to get a one-time 25% off your purchase.
And I can't explain to you how easy their app is and how easy it makes your experience at their place. Go in, you pick it up. It's always ready for you. Your name's on it. They have a great bag that you get. I use that bag when I have to deliver certain items that we give access to. So
I'm excited about it.
Let's take a break. Let's take a hockey break. Brought to you by Happy and Hill.
So I am workshopping something as we're now entering into the Four Nations tournament. I believe it starts up tomorrow.
okay.
I think it does. Anyway, I'm wondering if we should do not just a hockey break with Happy and Hail, but a Finnish saying break. Because, we are rooting for both Finland and Canada in this thing because of the Hurricanes connections.
America's in there too.
Yeah,
Slavin.
Screw America.
Okay.
Give me, plus the Finnish uniforms are clean.
I'll root for Finland. Yes, I'm in.
So I feel like we could do a what if Sebastian Aho was to say a Giglio-ism in Finnish.
Yeah.
So put it in your ear.
In Finnish.
Finnish.
Bracket like it's real.
In Finnish. So let's take a Finnish hockey break.
It's a year-to-year proposition.
In Finnish. Why can't you just enjoy the Final Four run in ACC tournament? Why can't you just enjoy it? In Finnish. Gotta mix it up, Joe.
Fine, let's fire everybody.
In Finnish. Anyway, big thanks to our friends over at Happy and Hail. And of course, Home Field. I got the Home Field on right now from the Sports Podcast Festival. Incredibly comfortable hoodie. Go to homefieldapparel.com. They got these, speaking of hockey, they got these throwback hockey sweater hoodies.
I've heard about this.
Dude, these things are fire.
Wow.
I want ACC squads, for heaven's sake.
Oh,
I want
I
ACC
wasn't even
squads.
thinking in those terms.
Give me some freaking ACC squads. But no, they got some really, really cool stuff. And I'm going to harass Josh to make sure that we can get a Carolina one and NC State one for the next Governor's Cup. That's what it's all about. So check out homefieldapparel.com to get yours. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline from WFNZ in Charlotte, where, he's been blessed by the content gods this year, really the last couple of months. He's Walker Mehl on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. Walker, what's going on, man?
Oh, yeah, a lot is going on. I appreciate you guys having me on. You're right, though. And I don't know if it's the greatest of content. But I guess any content is good content. So we're going to keep it rolling in. And, Smitty gave us something, but this Mark Williams thing, it won't die. We thought he was gone. We thought we already did the goodbye messages, all the reaction pods, and
right.
Ike, he's back. So,
all right. So
we're still
it's
going
funny. I had, I do some semblance of planning ahead occasionally on this podcast. We're not known for planning too far in advance, but I was thinking about, all right, Super Bowl's over. We got the Four Nations tournament. Canes are on a break. What can we check in with? I'm like, I know. What's been going on with the Hornets, right? And then, with the trade deadline, I'm like, oh man, Mark Williams. Laker fans are scrubbing the internet to find Mark Williams clips to see if they actually have a big man and things like that. I saw you roll your eyes like, oh buddy.
Yeah.
Finding clips. And then on Saturday, lost in all the Super Bowl sauce, you see it was the late. Walk me through this. Explain like I'm fine. The Lakers rescinded this offer that had already been agreed to past the trade deadline, which then sets up all sorts of questions that I have about what happens after the trade deadline.
Sure.
Because there's a deadline.
Yeah.
So what exactly happened here?
Okay, so let me take you to the beginning. So Wednesday night, the Hornets play against the Milwaukee Bucks Wednesday night. Okay. I actually was doing the post-game show for WFNZ. So I'm walking out of the arena late. Mark Williams is walking out at that time. I got a little bit of a rapport with him. I just was going to say hello, looking down at his phone, music, completely solo, walking out. It's like, all right, I'll catch him later.
Fair.
Not going to happen. An hour and a half later, gets traded to the Lakers for a 2031 unprotected first, pick swap, Dalton Connect, Cam Reddish is thrown in there as well. Cool. He gets traded. We see the goodbye message from Mark Williams. We see the thank you message for the Hornets. All done, right? Trade never comes through. Saturday night, Shams of ESPN tweets out that the trade had been nixed. This thing is rescinded. He failed a physical. It wasn't the back issue that had plagued him the previous year, but it was other things. It was just a couple of other things. What are they? I don't know. There's a couple other things there, but it wasn't the back, right? We knew that. Okay. So now, after the trade is rescinded, we go all day Sunday. We go most of the day Monday until about last night, when now the Hornets are challenging the rescission. Now they are challenging, saying that the Lakers, they're exploring avenues. I guess they aren't formally doing this, but they have contacted the league to see exactly what they can do to challenge this. And so Shams tweeted out, the Hornets have been in contact with the NBA as they explore options to dispute the Lakers' failed physical assessment of center Mark Williams, and the Hornets are considering their next steps and weighing avenues to challenge this. So in terms of the timeline, that's how it all unfolds. He gets traded late Wednesday, early Thursday morning, and now here we are where, I mean, we don't know if he's going to be back with the team. We don't know if there is a challenge to be had. And if so, do the Hornets have a case to actually get their picks back, Kevin Costner style, and getting Dalton Connect and everything? And Mark Williams, you're forcing him out despite him coming back. It's all very weird. It's all very weird.
I was ecstatic when I saw this trade for Mark Williams.
Yeah.
Because if you haven't followed Mark Williams since he left Duke, he's been in the NBA 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm explaining this to Ovies Walker. There are 82 games in an NBA season. He's been in the NBA for 3 years.
Right.
He's played in a grand total of 85 games in 3 years in the NBA. So I was like,
that's insane.
at first I'm like, well, this guy's going to get a chance to go help LeBron. I mean, who wouldn't want to play with LeBron James and Luka Doncic, right? Like, amazing. But the last part of that, Mark, which you might appreciate, is this poor bastard, right? He was at Duke for a hot minute like everybody else.
Yeah.
The only thing he will ever be remembered for in the state of North Carolina is being dotted by Caleb Love at the Superdome in the Final Four. The only way for him to personally square that would be to go win a title with LeBron James, Luka Doncic.
But he has to,
now this poor bastard just has to sit there and count his stacks on stacks, Joel Embiid style. I don't play. I don't matter.
Yeah.
And I still got dotted by Caleb Love. No one remember me for anything else.
Well, yeah. And so you're right. What's funny is it's that I actually really valued his perimeter defense as an athletic 7'1", 9'9" standing.
Oh, that's sure.
And then of course, all anybody has to do to dispute that notion is boom, send picture of Caleb Love shot.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, you got me. He did out of the perimeter. He didn't contest enough. Well, and so okay, so that's the timeline of how the events occurred. But there's a lot of interesting stuff along the way because, of course, as you mentioned, Joe, like Mark Williams had been injured for most of his NBA career to this point. He comes back from a foot injury that he had suffered really right before training camp of this year. And he told us it's just a small blip on the radar. It's fine. I'm going to come back. I was doing 5-on-5. I was working through contact. He told our show that, like, hey, everything's good. Misses more games than we all expected, but eventually comes back. Cool. Let's just hope it doesn't happen again. Plays well. Like, they ramp up his minutes, plays well. And then, like, at the beginning of January, maybe like the first week into January, I think you start to get a roller coaster version of Mark to even just downright bad Mark Williams, especially defensively. You would have good games. They would be in there, but it would almost be like good halves. You would struggle in the first half. You would have better second halves, vice versa. He looked different. I mean, you guys, again, I'm talking to a couple guys that saw the Mark Williams experience. What I liked about Mark was that, man, it did feel like his progress was linear. From the first day that he stepped onto Duke's campus to the last, like, it felt like he just kept going up and up and up and up. It's what it felt like to me. And it felt like that continued into his rookie year, where he showed all the signs of being a franchise center, gets injured a bunch of times. Back, foot, the bad injuries for these 7-footers, like the ones you don't want your 7-footer to have.
Yeah.
And so he starts to look real poor, guys. Like just lack of mobility. It is not out on the perimeter contesting anymore, getting completely bodied down low, giving up 40 points regularly. Daniel Gafford for the Mavericks, Vucevic for the Bulls, Anthony Davis took it to him for 40. I'm not kidding. Like just allowing these big guys to get whatever they want in the paint, and it looked terrible. I had been saying his body doesn't look right. He's not doing the same things that he was doing when we were all excited. His first year in the league and like the 20 games that he got to play his second year in the league. Well, he gets traded. He gets traded for like what? I don't know. 120 cents on the dollar is what I've been rolling with. The Hornets got more value than what they were saying back.
I was going to say, of all things considered, they actually got value back, right?
Oh, yeah, right. And
the Mavericks did.
Yeah, I mean,
right. Which is why I rolled my eyes when you said Lakers fans were trying to find clips, because he was the next Shaq, baby. Like Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Shaq. Yeah, good luck stopping us. And that's not necessarily how it was. They were using words to describe him that clearly illustrated you do not watch the Hornets. You cannot call him a force. You cannot call him a physical defensive center. Granted,
do you blame anybody for not watching the Hornets?
I do not. I do not until you pretend to care, right? This is what we're until you pretend that you do. But no, I am not here saying that you need to watch him. And so now here we are where like I could question the Lakers on this. It does feel like the Lakers got cold feet. There is the vagary of it all, saying it's not the back, but it's this other stuff. So I get questioning him on it. But I did just watch Mark Williams' body break down and not look the same. So yeah, it's all a mess, and now you got the awkwardness of it all too.
Before we move on to the Panthers, Cam Newton, Steve Smith portion, what are the Hornets this year? Now, I am the resident person on this program who follows the NBA. I really want someone to call out the Nets for the hard tank that they're going through in not playing their only two functional players in the Cams. So I kind of get what the Nets are doing. The Bulls are now in a hard tank situation with their trade. But I look at the Hornets and I'm kind of like, what are the Hornets doing at 13-38? Because
they're weird headline makers.
They're not the Nets who are like you're with me, Walker, right? Like, why are Cam Johnson and Cam Thomas not playing? They're not hurt.
Well, and Cam, to be fair, Cam did suit up against the Hornets last night. So Cam Johnson played, but you're right. They didn't trade him before the deadline when you feel like you could have gotten a lot of value. So the Nets are doing their own thing. I'm not exactly sure even still what they're doing at the deadline. What are the Hornets doing? They're losing because they're injured all the time. And now you're in like this. How purposeful is this? With what kind of intentionality are you rolling through losing all these games? Because they're bringing LaMelo out with right ankle soreness. Okay, the guy has suffered 10 ankle injuries throughout his career. You go to Fox Sports, you look at the injury history. There's 10 ankle injuries. You go down that list, and it happened again last night. He had been he had this injury managed. Not playing a couple games. He comes back in. He has another episode of ankle soreness. He comes back out. So it's okay. Could he play if they were playing competitive basketball? Or are they just saying, you know what, sit this one out? We're in it for the capture the flag sweepstakes. Yeah. I feel like there's some of that going on. The problem is you just don't know anything about this basketball team, right? Like you're asking, what are the Hornets? I hear you. It's tough to figure it all out. It means that we never have a clear picture on when guys can truly come back, because the Hornets are incentivized to not have their best players out there. So they have the best odds possible to get Cooper Flagg or VJ Edgecombe, whoever it's going to be. So yeah, like it seems like they're being careful with these injuries, but also is it also out of necessity that you can't play them? Or is it like, well, they're hurt and we're just going to save them anyway? It's really hard to figure all that stuff out.
Apologies. I forgot Brandon Miller was out for the year.
Yeah, he's out with a legit injury because that's what's happened to the Hornets the last 3 years.
Flag, I see all this stuff and I say no.
I got bad news for you. This Cooper Flagg is not the kind of player that's going to save your franchise.
Thank you. Thank God.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying he's not the type of guy that will say no to Hornet. You're not thinking Cooper is the franchise savior?
No.
I think Cooper would really help. The good news about the Hornets is
Cooper would help a good team.
Right. That's the thing. There's a difference between Cooper Flag will help and he will contribute. And then there's Cooper Flag is going to save your franchise.
Yeah. Here's where I think the Hornets are actually in a good spot, right? If you decide to keep, LaMelo, which all indications are that they're going to keep him. They did not hesitate at all, giving him the $250 million max. Things have changed, but they did not hesitate giving him all the money. So if Cooper Flag isn't going to save your franchise as the lead dog, that in a way, that's fine. He's this real malleable player, though. So if you have LaMelo and you have Brandon Miller and then you have Cooper Flag coming in, that's a trio that on the court looks fantastic. So I'm hoping that those three guys can actually go out there and play with one another, because now it just kind of fits like a nice little puzzle piece. Cooper Flag defensively is going to help you. LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, those guys are star potentials. I think Cooper does have the star potential. And so even if Cooper can't save your team as the number one guy, those three being on the floor, plus you're just big, you're long all over the place. I don't know, man. But please don't rain on the parade, though, guys. Come on. I need to talk myself into it, somebody to come in and save the franchise. If it's Ace Bailey, fine. I'm hoping.
The highlight of the Hornets right now is that the Ball brothers got together for a video for Tweakers. That's about it. That's honestly the highlight of the
we got lots of music videos around here.
Yeah, man. It's okay. And I like the track too. I am a fan of the track. All right, man. Before we say goodbye, like I said, it's got to be an easy day for you. Open up the phone lines. We talked about this with Darin Gantt of Panthers.com earlier. Mm-hmm. Originally, I wanted to talk to Darin about the Hall of Fame process for Luke Kuechly and things like that. And of course, what do we get? We get Steve Smith and Cam Newton. It's more Steve Smith than Cam Newton. Picking at old scabs between those two from back in the day. So I got to imagine that the Smitty hive, what's stronger in Charlotte? This is the angle I want from you because you're there every day. What's a stronger hive in 2025? The Smitty gang or the Cam Newton people?
Well, man, I think it's the Cam Newton people.
Okay.
I think it's the Cam Newton people that's stronger. But I'll tell you the strongest, even those two, it's the third option, which is everybody just wants peace between these guys. Nobody wants them to fight.
You're never going to get it, though. You're never going to get it.
Not at the level that the fans want it. I think they liked it when everything was quiet. And now it's not. And so now fans are frustrated by seeing this. That's the biggest reaction I see. I don't. Yeah, you see some people sticking up for Cam. You see some people sticking up for Steve. I do think that most people just want peace between the two. I guess if I were to guess, I would say Cam Newton overall has bigger fans, like a bigger fan base.
Sure.
Maybe with this specific comment, people are more so on Smitty's side. Charles Johnson got involved, calling Cam Newton out, saying that loser is a strong word. And by the way, I think he's right. Loser, look, they were 2-14. I get it. It was a bad season. There are a lot of things as to why they were 2-14 that year. But man, I could understand why those players that do have some history of winning, whether it was before or after, I could understand why those guys don't want to be called losers.
Here's the problem.
Yeah.
And this is something that's been Cam's problem since he got to the league. And now that he's into the media game, he's going to have to accept. And now Cam's going to be Cam, man. That's just, he's always done it his way, and I will respect it from now until. But if you're going to do the media thing, words matter. And I think over the last couple of weeks, Cam has been caught in the sentiment is correct, but the words are not. So the MVP Super Bowl thing that got the people going a couple of weeks ago because of First Take, I understood his sentiment, but the way he presented it was not the way to go about it. Same with this and Travis Hunter and being a top pick. There's a reason why they're picking first, right? It's simple as that. There's a reason why you're picking first if you're the Panthers.
Right.
And you can talk about, and Joe and I were talking about this before the podcast, you can talk about losing mentalities or you've never really won, but you can't call a room
100%.
The 52 other guys losers.
Yeah.
You can't call them losers.
Right.
Will eventually help you win that MVP.
Right.
That you're so proud of.
Right. Words matter. At the end of the day, words do matter. And Cam's got to figure that out if he's going to be playing this media thing before he goes on our Blue Wire collective podcast network here. Shout out to Blue Wire. when he goes on 4th and 1, he tries to explain it and does the woe is me stuff. Like, nah, dude, you can't call people losers.
Yeah, this is the reason that was the comment that was the lightning rod, because we can have the conversation about what's more important, a championship or an MVP, what's better for your legacy.
Yeah.
You are indirectly disparaging your teammates because you don't care about their chances of getting a championship, I guess, if you wanted to swing it that way. But it was
He's
still
trying to differentiate himself from a Brad Johnson or
100%. Right. I think
he's absolutely right that
Yep.
just because you have a Super Bowl doesn't mean that makes you a better
I
quarterback.
wouldn't trade my career for Trent Dilfer or Brad Johnson just because they were the Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Man, all you got to do is bring up Dan Marino. Like who? Like I
Yep.
get it. Dan Marino doesn't have a Super Bowl. He went to 1 Super Bowl, but you can't sit here and tell me that Dan Marino is a joke, right? So
it was the issue with the comparison. We did this whole thing when that comment was made as well.
course.
Like it, you know, Cam Newton.
You're a professional, Walker.
Thank you. It's the Brad Johnson and Trent Dilfer of it all, right? Like,
Yes.
but in a way, people could take a step back. They'd realize what Cam truly meant. Nah, man, you're directly calling these guys losers and you're doubling down. Like, there's no muddy waters to see clearly through. We
Nah,
can
bro.
see clearly right now. You called us
dude.
losers, and that's why people have an issue.
Yeah. So
You're right. Words matter, and
But
Cam does get caught up in that.
and he's doing fine despite all that stuff. He's doing just fine. Walker Mehl, WFNZ, Locked On Hornets podcast. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you and Julian do it on these Locked Ons, man. I don't know.
mean, it's every day.
Yeah, he has an easy time, and I'm like, buddy, you're talking to a guy who does a Hornets podcast and does a radio show that I didn't put up with the Panthers for the last 2 years. Like, let him eat a little bit here, Joe.
It's every day. That's our thing. That's our thing, is that we do it every day. So, you know, stay tuned. We'll see what happens in the Mark Williams saga.
We'll talk to you later. Big thanks to the Butcher's Market. Check them out online, thebutchersmarkets.com. Just because the big game is over doesn't mean you have other catering events on the schedule. I mean, it's about to be AV kart season, my friends. So go to the Butcher's Market and contact them about catering that office party while you watch sweet Tuesday action of the ACC tournament. Who says no?
If you want to fit into those never nude pajamas, go get a ham biscuit.
So again, go to thebutchersmarkets.com. Also, our friends at Hometown Realty, we just had the big game. And you might realize that your house is not big enough for the big game. Bursting at the seams. Don't make that mistake. Just go buy a house for the next big game party. It's that simple. All jokes aside, the ease at which Hometown Realty helps you find that next house is a legit thing, especially when it comes to new construction. We've got new construction going up everywhere in the triangle. A lot of builders have incentives, and Hometown Realty can help you out with that. So check them out, myhtr.com. And you've got that house, you got that taste of Fool's Spring. The warmth is right around the corner, but you got to deal with a couple more bouts of cold here in the triangle. Sure, you're thinking about hanging outside, right? Be prepared. Contact our friends at bugsbite.com. Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. With Mosquito Authority, they got misting systems and various other plans to keep the mosquitoes at bay. In the meantime, they can also help you keep the critters out of your house and the crawl space.
I spent some quality time yesterday with the OG Hayes Lancaster.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. It's good to catch up with him. Good to see him.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
And we thank Hayes for also giving us a new radio bit.
I told him, he was like, how's that working out? He's like, I've been a little bit behind on the show. I'm like, oh man, I got to tell you, we have completely reinvented the format, sir.
Yes.
All thanks to you. And of course, thanks to bugsbite.com.
Of course, I'm the dummy who still hasn't come up with any sort of production for the hot and cold.
I can sing if you want, or do you want to?
We might need you to do that.
Okay.
Might need you to do that because our friends over at 1-800-Plumber and Air are the ones who bring us your hot and cold. So go to 1-800-Plumber.com or just call 1-800-Plumber. The name is in the number. Super, super easy. And there's one thing that I'm absolutely adamant about when it comes to HVAC because I've been burned by this. Upfront pricing, no surprises. That's key. That's crucial. That's where you build trust. And that's where our friends at 1-800-Plumber can help you out. So, Joe, what's our hot of the day?
It was a slow night in sports last night, other than that Clemson, North Carolina game.
Mm-hmm.
But we did get the return of Fat Luka.
Let's go.
Made his Lakers debut, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 4 dimes in 24 minutes. The Lakers rout one of those tanking teams in the Utah Jazz, but He looked good to me. Luka I mean, literally, he has Maverick fans chanting, "He's fat, so what? Bring him back."
Yeah.
Like, if there's ever been anyone I've identified more than Luka Doncic, it's Harry Higgs, who plays on the PGA Tour.
Oh, right.
But
right.
like, give me a break with this stuff, please.
Let the chubby baller
He's
cook,
also
man.
25.
He's not that chubby.
He's
That's 25. The thing. Yeah, come on now. Now that'll catch up to you.
Correct.
That'll catch up to you.
Correct.
Just saying. My cold of the weekend goes to not you, but like the collective you. The Super Bowl numbers are in. Super Bowl 59 broadcast drew a projected record audience of 126 million viewers.
Now, what does that mean, record audience?
Well, I know that with new measurement metrics and also when you account for the amount of streaming that takes place, you can then derive a new number.
Okay.
But the point is, a hell of a lot of people are still watching the Super Bowl.
Of course.
In some form or fashion, which is weird because I was told that nobody was going to watch the Super Bowl because it's rigged. I'm done with the NFL.
It's pretty clear that it wasn't rigged.
But what if it was? What if this was to throw you off the scent? What if this gets us to the lightning round? Lightning round brought to you by Sam Jones. Check them out in downtown Raleigh. At Sam Jones, you're getting some authentic, legit, real deal. It'll change your perspective on things. Eastern style barbecue. Sides are fantastic as well. So check out our friends at Sam Jones in downtown Raleigh and in Greenville. The reason why I transitioned over to this is because if it was rigged, well, then why didn't the Chiefs win it, Joe? But what if I told you that the best way to keep the conspiracy going is the illusion of choice? That you think the Eagles broke this. You think that, oh man, maybe all my conspiratorial theories and things like that and the officials and all that stuff, that was all silly. It was a figment of my imagination. That's what they want you to think. What if the Chiefs come back? It was all just to throw you off the scent, Joe. No,
you're asking them to eat a pretty big L.
Yeah, I know. That's all. That's all. Jokes aside, this is a dumb, silly way to get into the actual question that will dominate the rest of the week when it comes to post Super Bowl coverage, and that is typically when teams lose in the Super Bowl, it can break a team. And it's one thing to lose the Super Bowl and you never get back to it. We've been talking about the Panthers today, right? When you lose like that, I'm curious to see what happens to the Chiefs going forward. Some soul searching that might take place because it's not like the Patriots didn't lose Super Bowls. Right. I mean, look, they got their 2 against the Giants. Obviously, those are big, like crushing blows. How do you come back from that? So the next step, the next trick, the next thing for Patrick Mahomes is how do you come back from what is arguably the lowest point of your career?
They need to fix their offensive line. Yeah, clearly, it was really, 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 really bad. Obviously, other than Xavier Worthy, all of their receivers are not under contract, so they'll have some work to do on that front. But I think ultimately, this will test my theory. If you're going to lose big.
Yes,
I always say that. I would much rather have no doubt and understand that the pain was quick rather than be at the buzzer getting your gut busted. It's interesting though. I felt like the Chiefs. We didn't talk about this yesterday. I felt like the Chiefs' formula this whole season has been they've won a very specific way.
Yeah.
And I felt like when it was 10-0, I was like, this game's fine. They're going to score. They'll get the ball back to start the second half, and they'll be on their way. They had been really good in one-score close games. And it's almost like they didn't know how to play otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And good for Philly for taking all of that out of there. Because it felt like if it was a close game that the Chiefs would win, Philly said, no, we're not even going to give you that opportunity to weasel your way out this time. So just a complete dominance, both offensive line and defensive line.
Also coming out of the Super Bowl is the question of Travis Kelce. I mean, Travis Kelce looks like time has caught up to him. And now you have to ask yourself the question that any elite level athlete that's going to the Hall of Fame has to ask themselves, how comfortable am I playing in a diminished capacity?
Which he did this year, by the way.
Which he did, but how much longer do you think you can pull that off? And football, man, it comes at you fast before you realize it. Back when I used to do radio with Steve Logan, he always had the saying that football ends badly. That's a pretty bad way to end for Travis Kelce if that's it. I always think back to Rob Gronkowski, who still had his moments. And it's one of those things where if you can stash Travis Kelce until you need him, then I can see him coming back. But it becomes a very Rob Gronkowski-esque limited capacity. And then you break glass in the playoffs in case of emergency type situation. I think Kelce can still do that if it's in that reduced capacity. But if you're expecting a full season out of Kelce next year, I just don't see that happening. I just don't see it. But that's going to be one of the more interesting offseason things related to the Kansas City Chiefs and how they go about remaking themselves. The other NFL item that is coming out of the Super Bowl, what?
Watch them bring Tariq back. Watch him. Watch him.
It cost him too much money.
My God, my brain would explode.
Nah, it would cost him too much
Talk
money.
about the long game.
Yeah, there you go. It's like, now it's time to finally bring you back. Nah, it would cost them too much money. To your point, they're really like, can Tyreek Hill block?
No, they need to.
No, that's not how it is, right? By the way, the other thing with the Chiefs too, like Chris Jones and that, like you can get old quick before you know it. But anyway, coming out of this, on the Eagles side of this, one of the things that I was taking in with some of the national sports talk is people just don't know what to do with Nick Sirianni anymore. Because, like, all right, now the man's got a Super Bowl. What do you do? I mean, they spent a good chunk of the season, and I'm included in this, by the way, of being like, dude, what is your deal? What's going on? Like, to your point, are we going to reconcile all the reporting that took place at the beginning of the year?
That was not accurate.
Right? And and you still have to like reconcile like things that you saw in October where it looked like things were unraveling, for heaven's sake.
September, yeah.
In September. So those are the things that I'll be curious about going forward with Nick Sirianni. But one thing that you said yesterday that kind of stuck with me about the Eagles, they're not afraid to move on if they don't think it's the right way. Because Doug Peterson got and why did Doug Peterson get shown the door, by the way?
Over the quarterback.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if Nick Sirianni's in that same position. I mean, obviously he was hired because, hey, man, your job is to make sure that Jalen Hurts goes. But I'll be curious to see if there's anything in the future as it relates to what kind of direction they want to go in and where Nick Sirianni fits into that. Because Doug Peterson clearly did not see eye to eye with how management wanted to run their quarterback situation and how they wanted to position Jalen Hurts. Management ended up winning in this situation, but management always does not win. So I thought that was kind of curious as well. And finally, in our lightning round with the NFL residuals, do we have odds on who the Super Bowl favorites are for next year?
We do.
Okay.
I'm still looking for that value on the Buffalo Bills.
You're never going to get it, dude.
I feel like if the Buffalo Bills actually win the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Like I want a bigger payout than 7-1. So they're fourth on the board right now. The Eagles are your favorites as we speak, plus 550.
Yeah.
Chiefs 6-1, Ravens plus 650. Good value on the Lions, 10-1. The Commandos 18-1. Perhaps you believe in the Bengals and Joe Burrow 20-1. So there's some decent numbers out there. Cowboys,
maybe. No,
33-1.
God, that's such sucker money, man. Like Vegas absolutely knows that you Cowboys fans cannot freaking help yourself.
Giants are 150-1. Our Carolina Panthers are 100-1.
I mean, another Bama quarterback. People doubt it. Hey, right? Nah, that's not going to happen. We know.
I'll grab a piece of the Lions at 10-1.
All right, fair enough. Anyway, that is your lightning round. It is brought to you by our friends over at Sam Jones. Again, go check them out in downtown Raleigh. All right, let's get out of here with some Hey Joe, and we are going to go to the OG Sports Phone for this.
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports Phone and curse or don't.
So, of course, call it, please. We're here for all sorts of therapy, including Tar Heel therapy. This is from a 919.
Well, you vent, you call the phone, and then you chill. You go to Nature's Relief. Our friends at Nature's Relief Timber Drive and Garner's my home base. Get yourself something to drink. Get yourself a gummy. Just relax. Just relax.
Just chill. It's just basketball, y'all. This is from a 919.
What's up, Joes? I talked to both of you at the Rialto with Bomani the other day, and I told Ovies that the OG sports phone wrinkle lives rent free in my head, but I hadn't had a reason to call it yet. But now I finally have my reason. I have hit my breaking point with North Carolina men's basketball. I tried and I tried, and I held on for dear life, clinging to the ever so slight chance of making the tournament. I felt like I couldn't quite give up on them yet, but I finally have reached that point. So, anywho, I know I've kept seeing the talks all over the internet, the various Tar Heel reporters and such talking about, and Hubert himself mentioning an expanded staff with a GM and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know. It's just, it feels like rearranging deck chairs on a sinking ship no matter what they do, and I don't want to have to watch any more of this brand of basketball, and I don't want to watch it. I sure as hell don't want to watch one more year of it. So, anywho, just had to get that off my chest. And I know it's not that exciting, but I feel like I'm trapped in some sort of mental prison watching this team. So, thankfully, for me at least, baseball season starts on Friday. So, Tar Heel fans would love to see you all at the Bosch. So, watch the Tar Heel baseball team kick some ass. Thanks, guys. Take care.
You know, this is an excellent idea.
Yeah.
And even I've let go of some things. Sometimes you just gotta, if it's going to upset you, you can't do it. Right? Like we had to talk about me and gambling yesterday.
Yeah.
If it's going to upset you, then why are you doing it?
I asked you yesterday because you were in a mood yesterday.
I was.
And I asked you, have you ever considered not gambling on? I'm not bringing this in like, Joe, you have a problem.
Yeah, you're not bringing the family in.
Yeah. I'm not.
We're not going to open the door.
I'm not dragging James and his disinterested ass being like, Dad, could you not please? Thanks. Cool. Thanks. Bye. Caleb would be the same boat. He's like, can I get back to Marvel Rivals? Why am I here? Anyway, so that's not why I said that. I said it more along the lines of like, maybe don't.
Yeah.
Curse or don't.
Yeah. If it doesn't make you happy to watch the Tar Heels, then you shouldn't. If it makes you happy to watch them in baseball, you should.
You should do that. Although, sorry, my first thought when I heard about it's like I feel like I'm in a prison. I'm like, oh, I need Creed's my own prison. This is from a 336.
Hey, Joe and Joe, OG podcast. Jeremy from Charlotte here. Want to talk about a couple things, if I may. One of them being the performance of Carolina basketball and this analysis of Hubert Davis as a coach. Now, what people forget is the fact that he got hired on the heels of Roy Williams basically being chased into retirement, like many other head coaches famously have done, Jay Wright, Coach K, et cetera, because of this rising amount of NIL and players who are coming in with this head not so much focused on the name in front of the jersey, but the name on the back. And so, great success out of the first year, but people fail to forget the fact that if it wasn't for the fact that they had finished the regular season on a 12-3 run, after losing by 30 points against Wake Forest, and then also losing in the ACC championship game before they went on that national championship runner-up run in 2022, that three out of the four seasons for Hubert Davis would have been terrible. The following year, he's a preseason number one coach, preseason number one ranked in the country, and then what happened? They didn't make the tournament. It was the first time in I believe it to be 60 years that they failed to make the tournament. And then the following year, get pieces that are very important, and still managed to just make it to the Sweet 16, losing to Alabama. Here's the problem I have. I think that there is this aura around Carolina basketball where the standard has been lowered, acceptably so, because we're no longer having a Hall of Fame coach at the helm. And that okay is okay for Hubert Davis in Carolina basketball. My hope is that enough is enough, and I don't know where that line is, but after tonight's game versus Clemson, I hope we're very much closer there. There should be no problem, given the amount of money and the brand that you have at Carolina, not to, allure someone like a Nate Oates away from Alabama, Mark Few away from Gonzaga, et cetera, but I just don't see how we don't get to this point of raising the bar of what Carolina basketball should be, which is one of the premier blue bloods in the country, up there with Duke, Kentucky, UCLA, et cetera. So love to hear your thoughts and comments. And really, really miss those days with Mark Godfrey, Will Williams, Coach K, tearing it up in the ACC. God bless, buddies.
I'm sorry. One of those is not like the other, but I get it.
The same with UCLA.
Yeah. Well, we're seeing this play out with Indiana, obviously. We got a month left of this. Let's see how it goes. I think the thing that people were dismissing at the beginning of the season for Carolina, but I said, hold up. Let's see how the year goes before we start making proclamations about Hubert Davis, good or bad. Let's like hold up. Like, oh, there's no way. There's not like, there's always a way. We're starting to see that. And again, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning of the show. It's not that they lost at Clemson. It's how they lost at Clemson. That is the problem.
Yeah, don't forget, it was the football loss to Boston College that ultimately pushed Bubba Cunningham to say no.
Yes.
I cannot bring Mac Brown back for some sort of retirement tour next year. He hasn't earned it.
Right. That's exactly it. All right, we got another 919.
What's up, guys? This is Joe from Philly. I'm actually a Wayne County native who relocated to Philly a few years ago, and I just called to say that Philly sports fans are so unfairly maligned. You guys do some of this, and I know a lot of it's in jest, but having been here for 3 years, I will say that they are completely insane, but I think it's sort of in the best way possible, and to me, they are exactly what sports fans should be. They're just called to stick up for the Philly fans, even though I'm coming from about the least objective point of view ever, given that I live here now and we just won the Super Bowl. Go Birds.
Go Birds. I mean, I think a couple things. We're clearly having fun with Philly fans. The Philly fans that exist today are not they're not your dad's fans from Philly, from back in the day, like the battery throwing, booing Santa Claus, although there was a certain charm to that from way back in the day. I say this as somebody there's a charm to it. There's a hook. I say this as somebody who's actually married into a family that comes from that part of the country, Delaware, but the part of Delaware that is like Philly aligned. So it's Philly coded Delaware, if you will. Okay. So one of my good friends is also, again, Delaware guy who's all about Philly sports. So I understand the level of insanity. And if you listen to the program enough, y'all know I have an affinity for WIP up in Philadelphia, because I would rather take that level of fandom over New York, WFAN, Stu and Bayonne, complaining about the starting pitching, rotation, whatever, because New York is fractured. It's a fractured market. Whereas Philly, it is one town. It's all Philly all the freaking time, whether it's the Eagles, the Sixers, the Flyers, and obviously the Eagles. So I like that level of insanity. It is kind of a fun thing to see all the people, trying to climb the light poles on Broad because they've greased them. I mean, heck, the last time they won a Super Bowl, a man ate a piece of poo from a horse because he was so excited. So there you go. You're making a weird face. You're Mr. New Yorkie guy, so the Philly thing might not resonate for you.
Give me another city that has a court and a jail in the stadium.
Yeah.
Is there another one?
I mean, the Superdome has one.
Okay.
I mean, that's not a unique thing. They all got jails. Maybe Lenovo Center doesn't have a jail, but
they don't all have jails. Joe.
Maybe they don't all have jails. Who knows?
It's a clean sweep of Tobacco Road from everybody's favorite Tigers, the Clemson Tigers. And I think there's an old saying we got in little old Clemson called, "Fuck you, we're still Clemson." Swept Tobacco Road like it wasn't anything. What do they call that? Being triangle good? I mean, it's just another year in Tiger Town. That's all I've got to say.
So one of my great sayings.
Yes, but in Finnish.
Yes.
I love that call. Talk your shit. But it does get me to this. We'll end the show on this with a prompt for the sports phone. Who would you rather be? Would you rather be Clemson basketball, knowing what we know about Clemson basketball under Brad Brownell? How long has Brad Brownell been there now?
Is it 15 years? Is the longest tenured coach in the ACC?
Okay.
Did I hear that last night on the
was that
podcast,
okay
on the broadcast?
So no Final Fours No ACC championships. None of that. But they do beat Duke from time to time. They do beat Carolina. All right. And for the longest time, they never did it there, but they've broken through on that. Brad Brownell did that. He did that. Okay.
Yep. First win in Chapel Hill.
So I asked this to NC State fans, specifically NC State fans. Would you rather, or it's not a would you rather, would you be comfortable with Brad Brownell level basketball success at NC State right now over the last 15 years?
No. He's made the tournament 4 times. Made the final 8 and 24, has never won the ACC. So I can already tell you, they have a coach who's done both of those things, and they don't want him. So,
but it's a pretty consistent program.
They both worked at Wilmington, though.
But they're a very consistent program, though. Consistent.
I mean, define consistent. They went from 2011 to 18 without making the tournament.
Okay, I'm just asking the question. I just put the prompt out there. Just something to consider. Just something to consider.
They famously did not make the tournament in 23 after beating State. Not once. Not twice. But three times. So, no.
But that's very NC State.
Let me give you the answer.
But that's very NC State, if you think about it. Anyway, big thanks to our friends at State Farm. Matt Davis over at State Farm can help you out with insurance, saving on home and auto. Give him a call at 919-779-8277, insuregarner.com or theoginsurance.com. And, of course, our friends at Whitaker and Hamer. WH.lawyer is the website. Attorneys and counselors at law. They got locations all across North Carolina that can help you with your legal needs. Call the sports phone and tell me I'm insane for even that thought. Just saying. Just a little brain teaser.
I would like to have the mindset of Clemson fans when it comes to basketball, because they pour so much energy into football that there's a reason you can go 6 years in a row without making the tournament and not get fired.
It'd be cool. Let's see.
Right. I'll take that mindset.
That's what I'm asking.
But I'm not taking any of the results.
Fair enough. And call a sports phone. We'll see you tomorrow.